All right, so that's just to give you a little bit of taste of the lovely, quirky traditions that some of these universities represented today. But I'm sure no matter where you find home, they'll have another quirky tradition that we can add onto this slideshow as well. So before I invite our panelists onto stage, I would like to introduce our first moderator for the evening. Dr. Kim Dixit is one of the co-founders of the Red Pen. After having completed her undergraduate degree in anthropology at the at UC Santa Barbara, Kim went on to complete her PhD at Duke University in the same. She has over 15 years of experience in the education sphere and has worked with students from all across the globe. Kim has not only served as a professor and a mentor, but has also taught at some of the most elite universities across the world, including Stanford University, Duke University, and our very own St. Xavier's University. Would you please join me in welcoming Dr. Kim Dixit to the stage?
Thank you, Karan. It's great to see so many of you here. Sorry, let me put my things away. It's really fantastic to see so many people here. It's always wonderful to get a visual of how many people are excited about global education. So thank you for coming and, like Karan said, braving the traffic and the registration and everything else. First, I'd like to invite our first group of panelists up on the stage to have a seat. Okay, so I am going to let you guys introduce yourselves. I think you guys know what to say, each of you. Your name, the school you're from, the board you studied in, your college, and the major you're intending. And this is for those of you who, in the audience, this is our panel of students who've just completed the application process and are about to leave for college in a few days, weeks, months, very soon. So they're not yet. They're going to talk to us mostly about what the application process has been like.
Hi, I'm Sushma Pai. I'm 18. I studied at Bombay Scottish School, Powai, till 10th, which is the ICSE board, and continued the same board to Leelavati Baipodar in Santa Cruz. I took a gap year and was an intern with a startup for 9 months. And next month, I'm leaving for Fordham University, and I'm at the Gabelli School of Business at Lincoln Center.
Hi, I'm Soumya Garg. I'm from Gwalior and I studied in DPS Gwalior, which is a CBSE school. And I'm leaving for Colgate University in 2 weeks. It's a liberal arts college. And I'm going to be double majoring in applied math and economics.
Hi, my name is Sanjana Jubalia. I'm 18. I used to live in Boston until I was 10. Then I came here and I studied in Utpal Sangvi. I recently graduated from International Baccalaureate Diploma Program at Jamnabai Nosi International School. And I'm now going to be doing cognitive neuroscience and business at Carnegie Mellon.
Hi, my name is Ishan Khosla. I was at Pace Junior Science College. I'm heading off to Ashoka University this fall to study politics, philosophy, and economics. I was doing the Pace engineering aspect of it till midway into my 12th standard. And before that, I was at AVM.
Hi, my name's Roshni Goyala. I'm 19. I'll be going to University of Notre Dame in about 10 days now. And I studied at the Cathedral and John Connon School pretty much all my life. I want to probably major in economic psychology and sports management, some version of that. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, is this microphone on? Okay. All right, I'm going to go through some specific questions for each panelist so you can sort of get a flavor for what their experience has been like. And I'm going to start with Sushma. So, Sushma, you decided to apply to Fordham ED. I'm going to explain what that is in a minute. Could you talk to us about how sorry, I just want to ask you two things. One is you visited the campus before you went, right? So how that campus visit helped you decide that that was going to be your ED choice. And then the second thing I want you to tell us a little bit more about is your gap year. Why did you feel like taking a gap year was the right decision for you? So for our audience, ED is the early decision process. And for the US universities, many universities have an early decision deadline. And what that means is that you've made a commitment to that university that you have applied early, they will give you a result early, and you will attend their university, and then you have to withdraw applications from all other universities. So that's what early decision is. It's a binding agreement. So for students, it's a very serious commitment. So that's why I want Sushma to tell us, how did she decide to make that commitment And she would have had to make, well, she took a gap year, but if for those students who aren't taking gap years, you have to make that commitment at the beginning of 12th grade, basically October of 12th grade. You need to apply an early decision, sorry, November.
Yeah, so for me, Fordham was the perfect university, both like course-wise as well as its locations. So for me, I wasn't looking for a big campus, and I wanted a more intimate experience, which Fordham at Lincoln Center gave me. It had the perfect course since I wanted to study a combination of business with a social science like psychology or sociology, which it gives me as its major itself, and it's based in Manhattan. And I'm not the kind of person who wants to graduate and look for a job at Wall Street, or that's not my intention. Like I'm actually a vegan, and I want to pursue something in the culinary space as well. And New York gives me a lot of opportunity because it has two really big culinary institutes, one being entirely vegan. And that was a big part of my decision as well, because being at Fordham gives me the opportunity to be able to attend culinary school on the side, maybe a few days, maybe a few hours. And Fordham gives me this sort of time to be able to do that, as it doesn't have that much of a workload. So it was overall, in all aspects, it was perfect for me. So
Okay.
yeah.
Do you feel that visiting the campus, what was it about your campus visit that kind of clicked and helped you realize this is the right place for you?
Yeah, okay. So I was in love with Fordham before I visited, but the second I visited, I knew that this is the college, because I just felt that drive, and it's beautiful. It's exactly how I imagined it, and the staff, they were really nice. And even though they were nice at all the other colleges I visited as well, they just had a different sort of I mean, I can't find the word to describe it, but it was just a feeling that I got. And a lot of my decisions, even though are very calculated, I still, at the end of the day, I like follow my gut. And this was very important. And the second I stepped in, it was just perfect. Like, especially after I saw the banner, Fordham is my campus. Fordham is my university. New York is my campus. It just, like, I felt that blood rush, and it was just it. And compared to all the other colleges, this just felt right. And
Yeah, thank you. I think that Sushma's story really demonstrates the importance of finding the right fit. And you hear that a lot, and you hear universities say, we're looking for students for whom we're the right fit. And I think a lot of students are like, well, what does that even mean? How do I know I am in the right fit? I haven't gotten there, I haven't been there, and I'll know that, maybe at some other point. How can I know now? So I think one of the things that Sushma's story really kind of brings out is there's a lot of times there's a question on the application. I think it may not have been there for Fordham, but the question is, why do you want to attend our university? Pretty simple question, it sounds like. But many students will fill those words, those 200 words, 300 words they have to write for that essay with, I want to attend your university because it's the best, because it's good in this, and it's good in that, and it's good in all these things, which they already know, right? They already kind of know what they're good at, and even if they think they're good at everything, right? So her story really demonstrates how she didn't appeal to what they offer. She appealed. I mean, they do what they do offer. She did appeal to that, but she connected it to what she wants. Right. So that was a really important connection I think she made to demonstrate her fit, rather than just saying, the business program is great and this and that, but this whole vegan thing and New York City and the culinary aspect and all of that. So it's a great example of finding the right fit. Thank you, Sushma. Okay, so next I want to move on and talk to Soumya. Soumya, who I've known for quite a while, actually. So it's been wonderful to see your whole journey getting here. It's really great to have you. I think, in your case, you had very strong academics. Your test scores were basically almost perfect, and you could have chosen any major, any college in the U.S. You did apply to many other colleges, but you could have chosen any major. I think I want to focus on the major. And can you talk to us about, like, and in CBSE, you would have had a broad range of subjects. So can you talk to us how you chose the major that you are intending to study, and how that finally kind of narrowed it down? Because I just so you guys have a little bit of background, there was some discussion early on with engineering, whether Soumya would study engineering. And that that is a whole different set of colleges, right? So she's chosen a liberal arts college which doesn't offer engineering. So we kind of want to know a little more about how you got to that decision point.
So I'm from a CBSE curriculum, and basically in CBSE you don't get too many subject choices after 10th grade, which was pretty disappointing for me because my academic interests are pretty diverse. Like I love history, I love geography, I love math, I love physics at times also. But so basically, when I had to stick to physics, chemistry, and math, it was very frustrating for me. So I opted for economics as an optional subject, which a lot of my teachers told me it's going to be too rigorous and you won't be able to score and everything. But I wanted to study subjects that I enjoyed. So I ended up taking physics, chemistry, math, and economics in 12th grade, um, which I don't regret at all. I loved economics as well. Then, when I was registering for my APs at the end of about 11th grade, um, you know, I was told to go for like physics, chemistry, math again. But I wanted to study subjects that I didn't already, study in depth. So the APs I ended up going for were AP US History, AP Human Geography, AP Calculus BC, and AP Statistics. So two of them were math because obviously I love math and I wanted to, explore that further. But I think just taking such diverse APs was one of the best decisions I ever made, education wise, because that really made me realize that I don't want to stick to one set of subjects for the rest of my school career, college career, and I want to study everything. So that is why I ended up dropping engineering, because then I would have been stuck with science and math. I wanted to go for something that I really loved, which is math. So I decided to, major in applied math. And by the end of 12th grade, I added economics to it. And I applied to a ton of liberal arts schools because in the first 2 years at a liberal arts school, you're expected to study subjects from every single area. So that is a requirement, which was literally the thing I wanted to go for in my college. So this fall, I'm taking classes like Legacies of the Ancient World along with Intro to Computing, which is amazing because then I'm not, I don't have to stick to one line. So, which is basically what I wanted ever since I was a kid. I wanted to do history, I want to do geography, I want to do everything. And I don't want to drop math and science either. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. I think that's a wonderful story, and it really again demonstrates how important it is to get a lot of exposure at a younger age so that you know what it is that you're looking for. So again, the issue of fit and the issue of finding the right place and being successful in your application journey um, is really helped by having as much exposure to as many things as possible so that then you know what you like. Because a lot of times again it's like, why do you want to study, one of the essay questions will be, why do you want to study your chosen course in university, and you have to write an essay about it. Well, it can't just be because my father was an engineer and so I want to be an engineer. I mean, that's not a good reason. But she had a lot of good reasons about, I've explored this and that and I know what I want to do next. So it really helped in her application process. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to Ishan. Ishan, I think um, you said a little bit about this in your introduction, about being at Pace and being in that sort of IIT stream from the beginning and then deciding. So can you talk a little about how you made the decision to kind of step away from that? And then secondly, talk a little bit about um, why did you're going to study in India. India is one of India's new liberal arts campuses. Why did you choose India when you had admissions in also US and Canada?
So I think throughout my school life, I've always been a very curious kid. Science was never really taught to me through books, but different projects. And if I could apply this physics theory to the real world, then it worked. Otherwise, it didn't. And therefore, that's why I love my sciences up until the 10th. And I think conventional Indian mindset is if you're doing well at science, you go ahead and do engineering. And as a 15, 16-year-old boy, you're asked to take a decision for the rest of your life. Go ahead and do engineering, and that's what I did. But I think my experience with science with the JEs completely changed me because I realized there is no creativity. They completely burden you down. It's almost like this is a sum, this is the solution, get to it. And the person sitting right next to you, no matter how different he is, if you both can solve the same sum at the same time, you both are the exact same people. So it got to that. And I think those strenuous 16-hour days where you're just cracking your head and you're like, you know what, I used to like physics, I don't anymore. So that got to me. And I think, as Soumya said, the liberal arts really lets you discover yourself as a person. And with the way the world is evolving and the kinds of subjects we have now, I really think that if we are able to do justice to our lives and we really kind of understand each subject and then decide, it's a much better outlook towards the way we move ahead, because it's not like I did well in math so I should do commerce, I didn't do well in my sciences or math, I should do arts. That's not how it works, and that's the conventional Indian mindset. Talking about Ashoka, so definitely did have choices in Canada and the UK. I kind of singled out the UK very early in my application process simply for the fact that they too have a very rigid structure of education, as in you can't change your major, etc. It really came down to Canada versus Ashoka for me, and Canada being UBCU Toronto versus Ashoka. And what really attracted me about Ashoka was that they pay so much attention to the relationship you have with your professors. As in, for example, in a UBC or a U Toronto, you would have classes with 100, 150 people, while at Ashoka, they make sure that there are not more than 20 people in a class. So your relationship with your professor becomes far more advanced than it would rather be. Then, obviously, the fact that the way Ashoka has grown in the last 4 or 5 years, the kind of reputation they've built in the academia, and the fact that, I mean, as the Financial Times calls it, the Indian Ivy League, really getting it for one-fourth the price and saving up for masters made perfect sense. And I think I really just, and the fact that my parents were much happier that I'm closer to my support system when I'm doing something like this. And I think I cemented my decision about Ashoka once I went to the campus and I met the professors and teachers and the students. And it's just that all of them are so driven to do something and do it collectively. It really inspired me to say, you know what, I want to be a part of this journey. And so that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Ishan. I think you touched some some nerves out there. I don't know if nerve is the right word. Some hearts. Okay, so I just want to come back to your point and kind of reiterate, you know, the way that Ishan's story really does highlight the way the serious decisions that students have to take now about staying in India versus going out, and you know the kind of education that institutions here can offer, and at like you said at a price that makes a lot more sense at the undergraduate level. So I think his is a great story, and also I think makes us feel that, you know, by leaving the IIT stream, you're not compromising. You're still getting an amazing globally competitive education. So good for you. All right. So next, I'm going to go on and talk to Sanjana. Hi. So Sanjana, so you're, I guess, let me just think about this for a minute. You were very, very successful in the application process. You had a lot of great admissions, and you finally decided to um, wait an hour. Um, and so, do you? I mean, I think we attribute your success to. So now you're going to attend Carnegie Mellon, which is amazing for you. And it was great that you got to make that choice out of many good choices. So can you tell us a little bit about why you think that you got to the point to have so many good options? What was it about your planning, your starting early, etc., that really you think put you on the right track?
Sure. So I have some points for you guys because I don't want to miss out on anything. So basically, first, what I would like to say is that I started my application process, just thinking about my application process really early. And so I'll use this analogy. The application process is kind of like a song. So it basically you want to hit the correct note, you want everyone to understand it and relate with it, but in the end, it's your song. So you have to put yourself there, and you have to make sure that it's your voice that's being heard. And to do that, you have to have you have to think about every single part of the application process. So firstly, I would like, I know a lot of people think that this is very, ninth grade is really early to start thinking about the application process, but I regretted thinking about going to college in the 11th grade, because in the US, once people start high school, they usually start preparing. So it's really advisable to start early and start doing your extracurricular activities, start thinking about what you want to write, where you want to go. It's really helpful in that way, just knowing or maybe just understanding some terms about college applications. Like I did not know what need blind or need aware was, or what deferral meant until the 11th grade. And by that time I it kind of felt like I missed the bus, because I didn't know that I had to apply maybe for an ED. I could apply for an ED. So an ED is an early decision. I did apply for an early decision, but I wish that I could have had a lot more extracurricular activities done in the 9th and 10th grade. Um, Apart from that, yeah, so I also wanted to talk about standardized testing. So I would also recommend doing the standardized testing really early when you start your 11th grade. I finished my standardized testing before the December of my 11th grade, and it was really helpful for me because I could focus on everything else. I could focus on building my portfolio. um, and I also took 2 attempts. So there's one misconception a lot of people come and ask me, is that if you take the standardized testing more 2 times or more than 2 times, does it affect your chances of getting in? It does not. It's actually better to take it 2 times, because you're 90% going to get more in your second attempt, if you work hard, that is. So it's recommendable to it helps taking it 2 times. um, Next, yeah, so I'll also talk about teacher recommendations, which is another important part of your process, of your application process. It's really good to, from the beginning, build a rapport with your teacher. And also, there's at the end in your school, there's usually a teacher recommendation form that you have to give. So from the beginning, if you know that okay, these are certain things that I've done in her class that might have impressed her, you can write that on your form. Because when I was filling it out, I did not know what to write, because it was like I did not note anything down. It was like daily stuff that I could have written, I did not write. Another important thing is to let the teacher write your recommendations. Don't write it yourself, because they usually understand that it's your voice, because you're anyways writing an essay for them. So make sure that you get your teacher to write your recommendation. And if they, like, sit with them, force them to, just interview you for maybe 5 minutes and understand like what you want to be put in your recommendation. So I'm sure they'll incorporate it in some way. Yeah, another very important thing is research your college. So what I like the red pen, why I like the red pen a lot, is because they focus on best fit over brand. And that's actually really important. So when I did my ED in Harvard, um, I thought that was the best fit for me, and I was very upset because I got deferred and then I got rejected. But now I'm realizing that if I would have taken another college that maybe would have been more of a fit for me, I would have gotten through in the ED round. I would not have had to write all of those regular decision essays, and I would have been done. I could have studied for my boards, and I wouldn't have had to go through the entire process. So it's very important to research the university, what the kind of students are like, because they will mainly focus on what is the best fit, which student is the best fit for them. So they are looking at the application in that way. So you should also try to make sure that you apply to universities that will, you have a good chance of getting accepted. And that's not just in terms of marks, but also in terms of the demographic that goes there. Harvard students, they are very competitive, and it's a very good thing. But that's also whether you want to be, if you're that type of person or you're not that type of person, it depends. um yeah. Okay. Lastly, I'll just talk a little bit about the IB. I don't know how many of you are doing the IB. So I got a 45 recently, and I just wanted to talk little bit about time management and a little bit about the subject selection and everything. So yeah, so what I basically did was I kept deadlines before the deadlines of my school. So supposing there is I had an EE deadline on the 1st of August, then I would keep my personal EE deadline on the 25th of July. So then by the time I gave my first draft, it was actually kind of my second draft. And that really, really helped me keep track of all my deadlines. My teachers were really happy with me. They wrote really good recommendations for me. So it really helps that way. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to talk about.
Thank you, Sanjana. I think Sanjana's, I mean, I don't really have to say more than she said because she said it all. But I think her story really helps to highlight how complex the US application process is. And it's not the case when we're talking about UK or even India. So Ishan was free of that in his applications a little bit. It's still complex everywhere else, but the US process has many parts and pieces that have to kind of, and I think the thing she said earlier about keeping deadlines and managing your time and doing well in school, feeding into your recommendation process is very important. You have to see it as it's all kind of interlinked. It's a very symbiotic kind of process. So it isn't something you want to start late. And I think that was kind of the message we were getting. The other thing I just want to say is that Sanjana was and Sanjana and even Soumya and all of you actually were great testers, right? They were good at the SAT and the ACT test, and they some of them experienced it in a happier fashion than others, but they did fine. Um, but I think that I want to let all of you know that there are colleges in the US which are test optional, and they are good colleges. So there are many good test optional colleges out there, but then you have to have good grades to get into the best test optional colleges. So there are many sort of pieces of information that we can kind of add into her story, but I think we get the idea that it's complex. Okay.
Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about scholarships, since Ishan did mention that that was one of the decisions that, like, that's one of the main decisions that I took also while deciding colleges. So basically, when you apply to a particular college, say Harvard University, you're automatically nominated for for the merit-based scholarships. So that's basically based on your academic scores and everything. You can fill out a separate form for your financial aid if you want a financial aid, and that policy is usually very different for international applicants. So you should check out on the financial aid policy. But apart from that, if you want to get scholarships, there are a lot of external scholarship options, but you have to research about that. And there are a lot of external essays that you have to write. So I got a $150,000 scholarship, but a lot of that is a culmination of external scholarships, extra essays that I wrote. So like keep that in your mind and try to manage all of that together, so then you can help your family also, and you can also go abroad. Yeah.
Yeah, so one point I want to make is that Harvard or no Ivy League college actually offers merit-based scholarships. They only offer need-based scholarships, but that's fine. But they're need blind. Harvard, Yale, Princeton. Okay, anyway, that's sort of beside the point. But what the point that you made that's important, Sanjana, is that Carnegie Mellon does not give any aid to international students, and she's going to Carnegie Mellon, so she got her aid elsewhere. So that's a very important.
No, I was a US citizen, so I did get my financial aid,
Okay.
but I got external scholarships.
I see. Okay. See, even more complex. Let's let's move on to Roshni. Okay. Okay, Roshni. So you applied to many colleges in the US and Canada, and then when you were admitted, you visited them, right? Yes. So again, Roshni, someone whose story I know well and have known for a long time. So how did the visits and the campus tours really help guide your decision in the end? Because I think what you would have chosen without those visits was very different from what you chose with. I mean, after doing them. And the other thing to remember is that because Roshni was in Cathedral, her exams finished in March, right? And then all the admissions come out in March, and then she's free to go in April and visit everything, and then she has to decide by May 1st. So it's a great advantage if you're in a school in an Indian board that has that kind of a timeline. Of course, for IB students, that's not possible because you're preparing for your exams. But anyway, so she was able to pretty much visit almost every college you were admitted to, right? What? Yeah. Okay. Continue. So tell us about them.
Okay, so I'll start by saying my process was pretty much the opposite of hers. I didn't really have pre-deadlines. I didn't think about my stuff before. I didn't really finish. I mostly tried to like flow through everything and just went by my gut. So when I applied ED, one of my brothers had taken me to Duke just because he liked the campus, and I was enamored. I was like so enamored by it. I thought, oh wow, it's brilliant. It's Duke. Obviously, everything's gonna be good. And I didn't really think much about it. And then I applied ED, and when I got rejected, I knew I was going to get rejected, but when I did, I took it really hard. But then I also realized that I had to start thinking about the college which would actually be the best fit for me, which would actually, in which I would grow the most. And I was still very indecisive in the rest of the colleges as well. So when I applied and then I got in, and then I decided to visit about 6 of them, and they all varied in size, in the programs which they offered, and in locations as well. So before I visited, I was so sure that I was going to take Michigan. It was the second school that I wanted to go to after Duke, and after I got into Michigan, I was like, this is it for me. I don't know why we're going, Mom. Why are you dragging me? I'm going to go to Michigan any which ways. And that wasn't the case in the end, because I went to Michigan and I loved it. But then when I went to ND, there's something which you say at ND, which is it's ND, and if you know, you know. And I don't know how to explain it. It's a pretty inexplicable feeling. But the minute I saw the campus by night the first time, and it sounds pretty superficial, but that was when I knew that that was where I was going to spend the next 4 years. And after that, it just grew into how accommodating and how helpful the entire university staff that I interacted was with me. The admissions officer, Mary de Villiers, she took out so much time for me to take me through different courses, to take me through different campus, to the campus tour on her own, even though she didn't need to. She set up I play basketball, and I'm a huge basketball fan, and ND had just won the championship. So she actually took me to meet the coach, even though, and that is, she's a very revered coach who doesn't really take meetings, and I was just so taken aback by the effort that she put in. And after that, ND is about 2,000 people per batch, so it's not small, but it's not extremely large. So that's also a that also factored in a lot for me, because I kind of wanted those interpersonal relationships. And the classes same are capped at like about 20 to 30 people. So that really allows you to get to know the people. And the last thing about why I chose Notre Dame finally was the community and the sense of belonging that you have over there. Everything at ND that you do is not I, it's a we. And everything from like the residence halls to the clubs to the classes, everything is done as a group, as everything is done to help the next person. And that was the sense that I had at Cathedral, and that's the sense that I want to carry on. So that's why Notre Dame was it for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Roshni. I think, I think Roshni talked about the class size at Notre Dame being important, which is 2,000 students per class, per incoming batch. And in a place like Michigan, it's more like 10,000. It's much, much, much bigger. And so I think students say, no, I want a medium size or a smallish environment, and I want this, and this, and UC Berkeley. And I'm like, UC Berkeley is like 20,000 students. So, you have to kind of, I think people then get hung up on like, okay, the brand, but I don't mind the size, but you do mind. When you actually see them side by side, you do mind. You do have a preference that, a smaller school is more what you're interested in. And I think, I think I want to just make a point here, because I think with Sushma and Roshni, we talked about them visiting, and I think a lot of people are going, oh my God, I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have visiting colleges in America sounds like a big thing, or even in the UK or whatever. But you don't have to do those visits. I guess our point is that if you can't, and if you don't want to, that's totally fine. But you need to find out as much as possible, right? I mean, I think you really need to just experience the colleges to whatever degree you can as much as possible, and then that makes it an important helps you make an important decision. What?
Say one more thing. There's another thing about Notre Dame, which is a lot of, at least in India, or at least a lot of the people who I talk to over here, my friends, even their parents or adults, everyone was like, oh, you're going to the Midwest, you're going to Christian school in Notre Dame. And there's this whole stigma, which is like, they're mainly Catholics, and it's Midwest, and it's mainly white population, and you're not going to fit in. But again, that was broken down only when I visited. So I would never have known the real campus feeling or how it actually is unless I'd visited. So that's why it was so helpful for me to visit.
Yeah, great. I think it's important to kind of not listen to those stereotypes when you're making that. Yeah, she has the microphone.
So as complex as it sounds, I mean, for me personally, I was here last year. I was sitting somewhere up there, and in about, I mean, it was almost as Namita was here, and she told me, she said, just leave it to us. And 6-7 months, even though those months were a blur, the red pen's done wonders for me.
Thank you. I'm so glad to hear that. I just wanted to say the reason, I mean, not that I have to know everything about everyone, but the reason I didn't know Sanjana's story, she actually didn't work with us. She's one of our interns after she graduated from high school. So she's helping us out in the office, and I think, yeah, it's been great having you. So thank you. And I think I'll excuse this row of panelists, and I'll ask Karan to come up and introduce the next session. Thank you so much for your inputs, and everyone will be here afterwards to answer questions. Okay, I just wanted to take a minute to introduce Karan Arora, who introduced me. So Karan is one of our associates at the Red Pen, and he has been out of college now for 2 years. Yeah, so he graduated from Bates College, which is a liberal arts college in Maine. So he can tell you that experience where everyone says, "Oh my God, Maine, cold, remote, distant, snow." he knows that, but he loved it. So you can't, you can't really. When I hear that, when I hear a student who wants to go to a place like Bates, I say, "Oh, are you sure?" And then Karen's like, "Yes." So it's not for everyone, but it was for Karen, so that's great. So that's what you have to keep in mind, is that everyone's fit is different. And after graduating from Bates, Karan worked in the admissions office there. So he has a very good insight to what universities are looking for, all those little small details when they're looking at paper files and deep files of paperwork on a student. What are those little things that pop out and that admissions officers see and say, wait a minute, this isn't making sense, or oh wow, this is awesome. So Karan has great insights into the application process itself. So it's really wonderful to have him in the office and to help us organize events like this. Thank you, Karan.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Kim. So as we transition into the second panel, part of what I'm going to do for about 5 to 10 minutes is just explain to you some of the different components that go into this application process. And this doesn't necessarily have to be just the US. This is actually all encompassing for both the UK, Canada, and India as well. So we've just heard from our fantastic group of students who are on their way to college and some of the things that they need to take into account. But I'm just going to draw your attention to these three big blue bubbles here. Uh, these are some of the most important components that go into an admissions officer's jobs of evaluating a certain candidate. Now, I will say that, I mean, I represented a small liberal arts school in the Northeast part of the country. And while we obviously had our certain guidelines for evaluation, different colleges will have different ones. But these are those things that people really look for. These are what we want to see as sort of standout factors within the students. So the size of these bubbles is sometimes directly proportional to how important they are in the admissions process. So let's take the US for a second, since it is one of the most popular ones. Let's focus on the biggest one. It is the data bubble. Now, when we say data, we mean what is measurable about the student? What can I see that I can obviously believe without any form of other validation that this student is going to be a good fit for my college? Now, the reality is that admissions officers, as competitive as they might be and as much as they want to meet enrollment targets, they want to do you a service. Right? They do not want to admit you to their college or university if you are not going to cope with the academic rigor. So understanding your academic background for them is extremely, extremely important. So every single thing that you guys have done from the ninth grade onward inside the classroom is very, very important for all those destinations. So I see a few smiles in the audience as to like, oh my God, I've already failed a couple of tests, I've not done too well. That's okay, right? Because there are a couple of rules and guidelines that we follow as admissions officers as well. As long as your grades are upward trending and you showcase some form of improvement, not every student gets an A in physics, not every student gets an A in English. That's all right. Part of our job as admissions officers is to understand that every student is unique and they're not going to be able to do well in every subject. Right? So unlike Ishan, I was not a great science student at all. But for me, I was able to show a constant increase in my grades, which was well received by the admissions office at Bates as well. We spoke a little bit about standardized testing. Right? So in the UK, while there are no real standardized tests, in the US, they are given a certain level of importance. We did touch upon a term known as test optional schools, and Kim briefly mentioned it. These are the types of colleges and universities that are giving importance to other components that you see on this slide, not just your measurables. They want to see what else you can offer that student body once you do arrive on campus, which is also very, very important. But without question, the most important factor that goes into your evaluation, whether it's the US, whether it's the UK, or whether it's Canada, is your measurables, is your data. So if there's one main takeaway you take away from today's session, it's strive inside the classroom, because that is the foundation and backbone of your entire application. We then move on to the voice. So, part of what Sushma was also talking about was finding that right fit, understanding the campus, knowing what programs were offered. And that's extremely crucial in this process as well. Admissions officers want to know that you've done your research and also you feel a sort of connection to that campus. Teacher recommendations is something our students spoke about, having a good rapport with who you select to write your letters of recommendation. There's sometimes some strategy involved in there as well. Don't always pick the teachers who are teaching you the best subjects, right? Maybe you pick the teacher where you're doing not so great in, because they can describe a more compelling narrative about your character and about your progress through high school. Essays. Again, I see a couple of smiles again. I'm sure a lot of you know a lot about essays in both the US and Canadian application processes. But the UK has a very important personal statement as well. And people say it's fairly, cut and dry document where you have 5 paragraphs and things like that. But the reality is, showcase a little bit of yourself through that personal statement as well. Describe why you want to really study that course. And with the US application process, the essays, for me personally, was my most rewarding part of the job. I was reading over 1,000 applications during reading season, and we had upwards of 85% of the students academically eligible to be a student at the college I was representing. So how do I do my job correctly? Right? I do it by understanding who they are and how they're going to contribute. And that's done through the essays. Oftentimes, when I was in high school, I would always ask the question, what's the stereotypical go-to essay topic? And I'm sure some of you are feeling that same way. Like, what essay topic should I write about that is really going to hit a chord with the admissions officer? The answer is there is no answer to that, because if there was a golden formula, we probably wouldn't have jobs, and neither would the admissions officers, right? It's what's important to you, and that's exactly what we try and encourage you to do. Find your inner voice, find what's meaningful to you, and sort of develop that compelling narrative as you go along. Demonstrated interest is something that's very unique to a college like Sowmya. So Colgate University, a small liberal arts college, that's basically when you're actually showcasing your interest and, as the name suggests, demonstrating interest in that specific school. Because the incoming class is significantly smaller than, say, a Harvard University or University of Michigan, they really need to be selective to see which type of students are going to fit and which type of students have taken that extra effort. What am I trying to say by this? Make the additional effort to meet those admissions officers when they come to your high school and they're having presentations, right? If you do happen to be holidaying in one of these areas, go visit a few campuses. Get a sense of what it might be to be a student there. It really does help in the long run. Again, not to say go out of your way and fly to America tomorrow and visit all these campuses, but just if it's coming naturally and organically, make it a point to do that as well. Right? And then the last bubble is talent. So this is fairly self-explanatory. At the end of the day, I'm sure each and every one of you sitting in the room today are talented students. But that is exactly what they want to see. It's not just you have to be a state champion in swimming or something else. It's basically, are you showing some form of engagement and involvement outside the classroom? They don't just want those absolute highly academic students. Because yes, of course, those are fantastic students who have worked really hard, don't get me wrong. But they also want to see well-roundedness across the board, once again, UK, US, and Canada. Right? Unique talent and leadership potential. I always make a joke about this. This does not necessarily mean that you need to be the head boy or head girl of your school, or that you need to have found a cure to cancer in your summer internship. Not every student has that ability, right? Once again, if you are able to show some form of initiative within what you are interested and passionate about, that's exactly what these admissions officers want to see. The last one is counselor recommendation. So for most destinations, the US, of course, being the primary one, your counselor at your high school will also be responsible for writing a recommendation. Now, this is their way of validating a lot of information that you are putting down on your application, right? The US, the UK, they do not care about these certificates. I cannot begin to tell you the amount of times parents come in and say, I have a whole file of certificates. And we smile and we say, that's fantastic, but unfortunately, that's really not going to make any difference in the application process. They want to hear it from other people that have also been an influential part of your high school journey, right? And that is, of course, your university counselor. And that is extremely important. So this was just a brief overview of some of the very, very important components that admissions officers are factoring in to their decisions. And once again, this is not leaning toward one destination or the other. It is overwhelmingly popular across the UK, the US, India, European destinations, as well as Australia. So as we make the transition to our next panel, I'm going to stop talking because this session is not about me, it's about the panelists. I'd like to invite our second moderator onto stage. She is also one of the co-founders of the Red Pen. Kavita Mehta earned her Bachelor of Science in Business from Wake Forest University in North Carolina. Following this, she went on to do her MBA at Wharton at the University of Pennsylvania, and has since worked in over 4 countries in 3 very unique fields of lines of work as well. She's worked in the financial space as an investment banker. She's worked, of course, in the education space, but also in digital media with Yahoo. She's seen it all. She's done it all. She's worked with students and been a mentor as well. So please join me in introducing Kavita Mehta.
Thank you, Karan, for the nice introduction. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see such a big audience and an engaged audience. And that was a terrific first panel. I'm going to invite my next set of panelists to come up, and then we'll get started. Okay, so this panel is a little bit different than the first one. This panel are our seasoned veterans, is what I like to call them. They're all students who have either completed college or in the middle of college, and are working or doing internships and what have you. So after the application journey, what does it really mean to be a student on campus? They've gone through it. Some of them were in the audience or on the panel last year, on the first panel last year, and now they're going to give us the other side of that. So if I could get each of you to spend about 2 minutes introducing yourselves, where did you go to school here? Where do you go to college? And what's your major?
Uh, Hi everyone, my name is Anshul Tripathi. I currently study at the University of Pennsylvania. I finished my schooling up until the 10th grade at Bombay Scottish Powai, and during the last 2 years of high school, I was at Pace Junior Science College. At Penn, I'm currently studying computer science, and I'm exploring the option of getting either a second degree or a master's. And it's been a great journey so far.
Hi, I'm Sachi Kishnani, and I studied at Bombay Scottish School until the 10th. And then I studied at BD Samani International School, where I did the IB. Following which, I applied to Pat Institute, where I've just completed my course in architecture with a minor in construction management.
Hi, my name is Nenika Ajani. So I went to JB Pettit for the first 2 years of my high school where I did the ICSE curriculum. Right after, I moved to Bombay International School where I was part of the first batch for the IB diploma program. After a great 2 years there, I decided to move to London and study business management at Cass Business School.
Hi everyone, I'm Ishan Jaffer. I studied till the 10th grade in Bombay Scottish School, Mahim. I did my ICSE there. After that, I did my 11th and 12th in Cathedral. I did the IBDP program. I currently just finished my freshman year at Carnegie Mellon University. Um, Over there, I'm actually on the varsity swim team, and I had a completely different application process from most people. For the young people in the audience, I highly recommend pursuing a sport. It eventually does pay off. It may not seem like it with the Indian culture, with everyone being like, you should study, don't pursue a sport. But like, I'm here to tell you that it is possible for sure. So, yeah.
Awesome, great. So I'm going to start with you, Anshul. What I want to know about you is you did a lot of research when you were in high school, and that was a big component of your application process and defines you as a person. How have you leveraged that in the university setting, and what are you doing now this summer with those interests?
So during high school, wanted I wanted to find a way where I could really make myself stand out in my application. I wanted to find a way through which, colleges find out who I am as a person. And my most creative outlet for expression was simply working on projects and crazy ideas that I had. I worked on a bunch of them in high school. My Common App essay was about that, and eventually I wanted to pursue that same research in college. In college, once you have a passion, once you have a project, once you have something that you want to work on, you have an endless pool of resources backing up that interest. For me, at Penn, there is a formal process through which you can acquire research work. It's called the PERM, PURM. I forget what it stands for because I didn't apply for that. And I was too late to apply for that. And I still wanted to do research over the summer. So for me, it was as simple as walking up to my major advisor in college and telling him, okay, I've worked on these projects in school. I know I was supposed to, formally apply, but I haven't done that. I'm sorry about that. Is there anything you can help me out with? And is there any research position that's available? And within the next 15 minutes, he found out the kinds of projects that I was interested in, the kind of projects that I worked on, a specific project that I had worked on in high school, and a specific problem in that project that I was facing. I'm currently doing research work on that now in college. So, I guess in summary, it's just as simple as the fact that in high school you have certain interests. Make sure that while applying to college, you know what those interests are and you select the right place for you, the place that has the resources to back that up. And once you get that, it's just as simple as walking up to someone and telling him, okay, I'm interested in doing this. Can you help me out? And 99% of the time, the answer is going to be a yes.
you said something really important. It's as simple as walking up to someone and asking them. And I think that's the one thing that I would want to take away from this is that the onus is on the student, right? Once you get to campus, there's so many resources. No one's going to tell you what to do or how to do it. But if you say, this is the problem I want to attack, or these are the problems I'm facing, and go to your advisor and go to the resources available on campus, then they'll help you make a plan. But you have to be vocal and advocate for yourself.
Exactly. And even if you don't know exactly what you're going to do, I'm pretty sure it works in a similar way in other universities as well. But usually, when you enter a university, you have a senior faculty member who's assigned to you as your mentor, as your advisor. And if there are some questions that you want to bounce off of them, if there are certain questions you have about academics or about the social life there as well. My major advisor was a computer science and English graduate from Penn who ended up becoming a faculty member at Penn, and he knew everything about the place that I could potentially question. So you'll be in safe hands there. You'll be in people who know what they're talking. You'll be in the hands of people who know what they're talking about, and they'll definitely give you advice that in the long run is going to benefit you, and you're definitely going to be grateful for.
Great, thank you. So Sachi, you just finished university, right? And throughout your summers, you did different internships. Could you tell us a little bit about how what internships you did and how they helped you throughout the course of your study?
So I'm going to start off by saying I think internships are a very integral part of your education. I'm just going to list a few of the top of my head. So I worked at CBRE in the project management department in capital markets here in Bombay. I worked with Sanjay, who's an architect. I worked with Access Architects, and these are basically my Bombay-based internships because I came back almost every other summer. While I was in New York, my college gave us the opportunity to work for credits, which I did at as a freelance designer. I worked, and my employer uh, valued my work, so she actually requested if I could work throughout the year following up my semester, and I actually ended up working for a year and a half with her, even outside of the work for credit opportunity that my college gave me. So what I'm gonna kind of um, capitalize on is that the internships kind of brought into perspective like the real world aspect of the architectural industry, which is something that you do touch upon in school, but until you're actually in a working atmosphere, you're not going to grasp. And that's what I learned mainly from my internships. The nuts and bolts of construction and architecture, something that you're not going to only gain from a theoretical based knowledge, like from books and stuff. And you're never going to be on site if you're just in school during your 5-year architecture program. We never visited any sites. So I made sure that at every internship that I was at, I was always on site, always learning how you're kind of like post tensioning beams. And I'm getting too much into architecture. But what I want to say is that the real world stuff is going to come from working in the industry in a work environment. Two more things that I want to touch upon is that, especially in architecture, it's all about collaborating with people, and it's all about liaising and coordinating. There's never going to be a point at which you're going to be given the responsibility for an entire project on your own. And that is, again, something that you don't really learn in school. And that's something I gained a lot from my internships. The ability to coordinate and liaise not only with contractors and your boss, but also with your clients. And this is something that I also learned a lot from my 1.5 year freelance job in New York. So there were times where I'd have to present and conceptualize and design a project for a residential renovation, and not only pitch it to my boss, who I had a working relationship with, but I'd also have to present it to a client. And what I learned from that whole experience was the ability to sell yourself. And that's also very important in an application process. You need to stand out, and it's all about selling yourself at the end of the day. So whether it's a job application or a college application, I think that's what I learned a lot from my internships.
Great. I have one quick question. In all your internships, especially the early ones, when you first got there on day one, what kind of what were your activities? Were you doing like were you designing things or were you fetching coffee or what were you doing?
So I actually my first internship was with Access Architects, and I interned before I actually went to college. And I just got lucky that the boss was we would sit in a room with one of the principals who had just graduated from Columbia himself, and his dad. It was his dad's firm, so he kind of he was a principal, but he would sit with us because he would always want to like interact with the young talent, and he just took an interest in me, and I actually designed from my very first day. I was sketching, and I was always nervous because I was like, okay, I'm not even like I've been interested in architecture for all my life, but I haven't ever designed. He gave me that opportunity. He's been my mentor, and yeah, that's another thing that I would like to say. Find your mentor. It's very important to find your mentor because they're the ones who are going to guide you, especially in a course like architecture, where every day you're going to wake up and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard. I can't do this. I want to drop out. I want to change my major. And it's someone like your mentor who's going to ground you. So, yeah, I did start off by designing. I wasn't fetching coffee at any given point. But yeah.
Thank you very much. So, Nainika, you studied business in the UK, and I think you're the only UK person on our panel or panels today. And the one thing about the UK is that you apply directly into a course of study, and that's all you study when you're there. So, you studied business management, and yet, and Nainika actually works on our team as well. She's one of our undergraduate consultants. So, you went from studying business management to working as an education consultant. So, can you tell me what skills you've used from your education every day at your work with the Red Pen?
Yeah, sure. I think some of the skills that I really developed while I was at university was working in a team, being responsible for myself as well as my other teammates, as well as networking, right? So when I studied business management, in order for me to complete my course and get my degree, we had a lot of coursework that we had to do. I worked in a lot of teams where we had to create business cases that were catered to different age groups, and we had to present them to different industry experts. Yeah. Here as well at the Red Pen, I work with a lot of students, parents, admissions officers, other consultants on our team, as well as content specialists, all of whom have different ways of working and processing information, right? So I think a very important thing to keep in mind is your key audience when getting into a meeting to ensure that it goes through smoothly and effectively. Because I think knowing your audience is one of the most important parts of a meeting. Another two skills that I really developed at university would be responsibility and balance. So at university, even though you have to focus on your academics, and that is a big part of why you do go there, it's also very important for you to participate in other clubs, activities, as well as maintaining a social life is also very crucial. Here as well, I work at the Red Pen as a consultant. I'm very responsible for, I take responsibility for my students' entire application journey from the start, from the college shortlisting to eventually ensuring that they get into the college that fits them best. Once again, I think prioritization as well as time management, which are also skills that I learned at university, do help me with my daily job here. Lastly, I think a very, very important part of my entire college experience would be my networking skill. So while I was at university, I met a lot of students that studied different courses, they did different majors, and they also attended different universities, right? So this actually was something that helped me kickstart my career in the education space. Interacting with so many students from different institutions gave me a lot of knowledge, a lot of insight about the strengths and weaknesses of different institutions. Knowing this actually helps me finding the best fit colleges for my students as well. Lastly, having access to so many alumni from different universities also helps me put my students in touch with these alumni on a direct basis. Lastly, I think it's very important to mention that the course that you study isn't really something that will eventually decide your professional career field. It's more important to pick up a lot of soft skills on the way. And yeah, if you do eventually pick something that you love to do, you will succeed for sure.
Thank you. I see this with Nainika. Over the year and a half that you've worked for us, every student that she works with them in a different way, understanding their work style and their preferences, and she caters her delivery to meet them. So she's really imbibed that. So I'm going to talk to Ishan. Now, Ishan, You are a computer engineering major at Carnegie Mellon, and you're also on the varsity swim team. You're a recruited athlete, very, very sort of demanding roles that you play for Carnegie Mellon. Can you tell us a little bit about how you balance these things and sort of what you think will happen sort of after you finish? What's going to happen with your swimming? What do you intend to do?
So So as of yesterday, I actually added a machine learning minor just to like make it harder. Um, the first thing I must confess that I'm not great at managing my time. Like the first month of college was actually really hard. You guys must expect college to be a bunch of parties, easy academics. It's not. Even if you're like a normal student, college is tough. Um, my first month, I was struggling, waking up at 5 a.m., not getting enough sleep. But then I had like this blessing in the form of a dirty, unhygienic roommate who was randomly placed with us. That led to me spending no time in my room. I only used my room for sleeping. And if there's one thing you must do in college, don't spend any time in your room. Only use it to sleep. So, the reason I'm saying that is because you only have 4 years in college, right? You want to make the most of it. There's no other time in your life where you can find all these passions that you like, that you want to pursue. There's so many things you're interested in. Don't waste it watching Netflix on a TV. I watched no TV in college, and you should definitely do that. Also, definitely go to lecture. This, I cannot state how important this is. First week, I was like, yeah, it's easy. I'm not going to any lecture. Don't do that. I now go to every single lecture. Even if you think it's useless, just sit inside. It's definitely useful. Because if you miss lecture one time, you'll miss it again. And you keep on doing that. That cycle is really hard to come out of. So definitely go to lecture. The other thing you should do is seek out mentors. So I like recently started doing this exercise where I cold email people or like DM them on Instagram. Like that's yeah. Um, so what I say is like this is you guys are all in high school also. So one thing this is probably the only time in your life again that you can begin a message with hi, I'm a student in high school, or hi, I'm a student in college, right? So everyone wants to help you guys. Like once a month I DM Elon Musk and he doesn't reply to me and I'm probably blocked. But one day I am going to get a reply, hopefully, and hopefully I'll get a job there at Tesla or somewhere. But yeah, that's the dream, right? And I actually got my first internship this year, like freshman year, by doing this. And you can get mentors this way. Like I actually have a bunch of mentors that like help me out daily, like prioritizing, choosing what classes I want to do, how I can manage my time better. And another thing I would definitely say, this is probably the most obvious thing, is that as soon as you have assignments, do them. Like you probably hear this all the time, but it's obvious, and definitely do that.
I think the thing that that strikes home with this is that these universities all cost a lot of money, and the resources that Ishan and Anshul and all described, and Sachi, are all included in the fees that you pay. So by not taking advantage of it, you're sort of wasting money. And what I found was, you can't take advantage of every single thing, of course, because there's a million things going on campus. But maximize your time. Don't watch the Netflix. Don't, sleep until 3 o'clock every Saturday, some Saturdays maybe. But take advantage of everything because there's so much going on. And doing it at the university level, I remember my nephew is entering his sophomore year at USC, and he goes to concerts for like $10, $20 that I would end up paying $100 or $200 for those tickets, and you only get those on at the time that you're a student. So I think that's really important. Karan, do we want to open it up now? Okay, can I ask my other panelists to come back up here? Oh, while they're coming up, go ahead, sit wherever. I'm going to point out a couple of our social media, picking up on Ishan's theme here. We do a lot of posting on social media. on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on YouTube. We have lots of videos. We have, I think, a video of Anshul that just went up earlier this week. We do lots of visits to campuses that we put up on Instagram. LinkedIn is a huge thing for all college students and high school students to be using. And Facebook is, sort of a short form on the things that we're doing. So I'm gonna, so please follow us. You'll get lots of information and regular updates. I'm gonna open it up to the floor for some questions. How long do we have? Okay, we've got about 25 minutes to take questions, and is someone going around with a microphone? Okay, so what I would request is if you have a question, just raise your hand. And then if you could just stand up and ask your question directed to somebody on the panel. And if you could just ask one question at a time, not sort of a multi-part question, so that we can get more conversation going. So I'm opening it up. Who wants to ask the first question? You're nervous? Come on. We're a very talented group of young people here. It's a great opportunity. Okay, let's go. She had to leave. Yeah, sorry. Soumya didn't take, Shushma, did she leave as well? I'm not sure why she took a gap year, but let me explain gap years a little bit. Some students take a gap year because they want to finish their academics through 12th grade and just focus on that. Applying to university in the United States it's like a seventh IB subject, so to speak, right? So some kids are just like, you know what? I'm just gonna finish this, finish high school, then they take a gap year. But the important part is during that gap year, they do something valuable. They intern, they travel, they do volunteer work, something that adds value to their application process. They can't just sleep till 3 every day and then hope to get into dream colleges. That's a gap year. The other thing that you can do is what we call a deferral. And a deferral is when you apply, you get in, and then you push off your entry for a year. So one of our panelists who unfortunately couldn't make it today, she did that. She applied, she got in, she made her decision, she committed, and then she took a year off to build her singing career. So she had, it was the best of all worlds, right? She knew she was going to college, she knew where she was going, she paid the fees, but then she spent a year building her career out in music so that when she got to university, she could really just keep going along that path. So there's gap years and there's deferrals.
In her case, I think it's a good reason and a good example of why to take a gap year. She took a gap year because her whole interest in vegan food. She wanted to explore that further, and a couple of things she did was she got internships with organizations that helped her pursue that, and she was kind of deciding, did she want to go to culinary school or study business or what? So there was a little bit of uncertainty about what she wanted to do next, and she didn't want to jump right into something because, as Kavita's pointed out, it's quite an expensive and involved process. So she took the time to make that decision. Next question.
So I was actually recruited to be on the swim team. I swim like probably like most of my day, like maybe 3 to 4 hours a day I'm swimming. So if you're an athlete, what you usually email like the colleges, the college coaches, and you tell them, oh, I'm interested in swimming for your team. And there's a completely different application process for you guys, for athletes. They read your application before you actually submit your application, and they tell you whether you'll get in or not. I know some schools actually like tell you you've got in much earlier than like other people. And also in my case, I got to know like I think 2 to 3 weeks after I applied. And yes, I also currently swim at college. It's difficult.
Ishan, when do you start contacting the coaches if you're a competitive athlete? Do you do it in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade? When?
I would say when you think you're fast enough, but don't wait till like end of 11th grade. I would say about 10th grade is when you have like, it's a good time. You probably have enough achievements by then. If you want to like wait half a year more, maybe wait till like kind of starting of 11th grade. That's a bit late. Ideally, by 10th grade is when you want to reach out to them, and by then you can start gauging who's interested, and you can like narrow down your list of colleges also. So ideally as early as possible.
Will you be swimming all the way through college? Do you intend to do that?
um yes, I currently intend to do that. But academics are my priority, and if at any point one of my classes or something has a conflict with swimming, I'm gonna talk to the coach, and if it doesn't work out, then yeah. But I love swimming and it's my passion, so for sure I want to do it for 4 years. I'm gonna try my best, because not many Indians like you see like are athletes at these colleges, and that's like that really helps. Like even today, like if you want to apply for a job, which other Indian is can say like they're an athlete, right? Like these companies want people that are different. There's so many Indians that are like computer engineers, do the same thing, and all have the same projects. And I'm so frustrated by that actually. And I want to be different. So yeah.
Awesome, great. Next question, right there.
Do you want to take it first? Okay. So it depends which sport you're interested in. Do you know which sport? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. See, I'll like say it first, and then you can. Yeah. So for swimming, the thing is that like their timings, right? So they know like if you fit in well with the team, and if you like have the timings, then you're on. Um, but I would say like definitely being like a national level athlete, state level athlete is good. Like I know I like when I visited the coaches, I had like an athletic resume with just my athletic achievements. So as long as you have enough participation in the sport, then it's good enough. Also, even if you're like a district level athlete, honestly no harm in emailing them, right? They can see your videos in basketball. If you have some, definitely do that. And so you don't get you like even if you don't get recruited, you can still be a walk on the team. So you get accepted into the college, the coaches don't help you, but once you're accepted, you're most welcome to join their team if you're good enough. And just being part of a team is really nice in college. Like you have seniors that help you, and it's really beneficial. Yeah.
Thank you, Ishan. You know what? I'm gonna move on from sports for a bit. If anyone has more questions about it, they can ask Ishan afterwards. You'll be here. And also, Karan um, was a recruited athlete at Bates. He played squash for Bates. He went from Cathedral and played squash there, so he can answer a lot of the questions about the process a little bit more. Any other next question?
So I did the IB and I did visual arts in my as part of my subjects, and it was at a higher level. So I used that as an opportunity to build up my portfolio. But I think what you need to kind of get through your portfolio is a higher level of individuality. Like, there has to be some sort of depth to your portfolio. It can't just be beautiful paintings and stuff like that. Like, that's not going to get you very far. There has to be some sort of thought that each piece is kind of talking about. So yeah, they need to be able to see that they need to be able to see you through your work. Like I think
I
that's
think with the portfolio, every university and every art school is looking for something different. So you can't necessarily just submit the same portfolio over and again. You have to have a sort of a portfolio for your portfolio.
I think that's the most important part, and your essays, of course. So yeah. So for I didn't do an internship, but yes, I did have like I had gone and like spent 3 weeks at an architect's office to kind of get involved into start to understand what architecture is exactly about. And I did have that on my resume. So I think, yes, it is important. If you can, it's a great idea to get into. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And architecture is also something that you really want to know if you want to get into it. And you need to, because it's hard. Like, it's very hard.
Next question right here. So the lady in gray and then the lady in red. Go ahead, stand up.
Um, I'd say, as a raw statistic, I remember reading this somewhere, that about 70% of the people who get into college end up changing their major. And I've firsthand been witness to that, and I've done that myself. When I entered college, I thought, electrical engineering was what I was meant to do. I loved engineering, I loved robotics, I loved physics, and it seemed to be a healthy combination of everything. Going into college, exploring different academic facets, you find out that you might have certain fortes or certain strengths that you might previously have been unaware of. I absolutely loved the math classes I took. I took some applied math classes in my second semester. I thought I wanted to stretch myself a little more, so I took a slightly more advanced math class, and which was on probability theory, and I absolutely loved it. And I spoke to a few different people. I explored a few different courses, and I found out, okay, applied math and computer sciencey things, the more theoretical computer science is something that is more suited to me now, given that I have a broader I have a broader set of options to choose from, and I've made a more informed choice now. You don't need to know what you're going to study. Most of the universities have an option to go in undeclared, where you don't declare your major upon entry. But you want to be passionate about something or the other, and you want to make sure that that passion shows through. If it's in a particular niche, that's good. You don't need to be 100% confident about what you're going to study, but try focusing your efforts in something that you're really passionate about, and that is almost unequivocally going to end up in a particular niche and a particular academic niche. So
One thing I'd like to add to that is you can change your major of course of study mostly in the United States and Canada. Other places around the world, you have to apply directly into a course. So keep that in mind.
So for the UK and a lot of the other countries, like even Singapore, Hong Kong, even Canada for that matter, does have some level of flexibility. But the US is the most flexible if you're unsure of your major, right? A lot of these other countries, you have to stick to the major, or like you can move slightly, like you can apply into business management and move to economics, but you can't really move from business management to like a philosophy course.
But just speaking about Ashoka in general, because it's modeled on the West, it's basically that you start off your first year and a major part of your second year doing foundation courses, where you're literally doing everything from the ancient books to some things like computer science. And only after your second year do they expect you to really come down and say, "This is what I want to do. This is my major." And even that you can change later on.
Stand, please. Everybody do those?
So I don't really know which exams you're talking about exactly, but I know that on the Common App there is a section only for honor exams. So they do help. So I gave the AMC, asthma, they were all math exams. So it does help actually. I mean, at least because I was able to fill the entire column, and then there are a lot of people who just had two exams. But if you have that's the more the better. It's good.
I would say like really consider how you're using your time. So if you are passionate about these exams, definitely do it. But consider how you could use that time if you weren't like doing those exams. What if you had like a personal project? Those actually like if you're so passionate about it, really go after those passions rather than doing some exams that like separates you from everyone else.
Yeah, so I did three programs. One was called Reach Cambridge, which was at Cambridge University in the UK, and this was in my ninth standard. And I did law because back then I was interested in law and I wanted to do criminal law, but obviously I didn't know anything. So later on, I learned that that's not for me. Then in the 11th, I went for the NUS economics camp, which was when I really understood how you study in a college kind of setting because it was at the National University of Singapore, and that was kind of what piqued my interest in economics more than it did in school. And the last one was something called Sunburst, the Sunburst Brain Camp in Singapore again, which is what I was selected for from as one of the four participants from India. And it was a kind of psych bio camp. So that's a psychology biology camp, and it was based on neuroscience and the psychological functionings of the brain. So we studied about for like 4 intense days about that, and the rest of the week we were giving presentations. So that's again where like you could study in a college setting with your peers and you had to do group projects, and that's again what piqued my interest in psychology. So that's why I want to do psych and eco now.
I think the answer is yes, the exams help, but a lot of other things help also. So do them only if it makes sense for you to do them. Back there?
So, in the UK, the entire course is a lot more structured than the US, as we mentioned earlier as well. In the UK, when you apply into a particular subject, you just study that for the 3 to 4 years that you're there. So, yeah, and I would also say that there's a lot more emphasis on self-study as well in the UK. Of course, there are classes, etc., that you have to attend, but there's also a lot of individual coursework as well as group coursework that you have to focus on. So, yes, I think there would be slightly lesser class time in the UK, but I wouldn't really say that it's easier. I would just say that it's a slightly different approach because you don't have to focus on everything. In the US, I think there's slight more focus on the extracurricular activities section as well as like group work. All these factors are a lot more emphasized in the US than the UK.
And so coming back to your question about the essays, even though I'm speaking about in Canada here, there was a university which had 5 different essay prompts, about 500 or 200 words each. I ended up writing 65 drafts for them. And honestly, it was hats off to the Red Pen to go through each and every single one of them. But speaking about the fact that you need to be academically strong to write an essay, that's completely false. It's really about how you perceive yourself and how you want to show yourself to the admissions officer, and that is definitely something that the Red Pen helps with. And yeah, I think I'll just pass the mic to Anshul here.
Uh, Regarding essays, so during the time I was applying to college, I was one of probably the most indecisive applicant you would have met. I ended up applying to nearly 20 colleges, and I knew that essays were going to be quite a bit of a challenge, and approaching them was going to be quite a bit of a challenge. On this front, I'd say that time is your best friend and your worst enemy. You These essays require a level of self-reflection that you might not anticipate going in. From an Indian high school perspective, where your standard exposure to essays is spend 30 minutes on an ICSE essay and then you're done. And that is, remember a few fancy adjectives, throw them in here and there, and you get what, about out of 25 you get 23, and then you're good to go. um, these essays require you to know yourself and to know your passions very well. And that takes time. I'd say even if you don't start writing about those drafts immediately or as early as possible, I recommend doing that. I think during my time, I started writing my essays around June or July, when the applications were due in November and March. So I gave it quite a bit of time, and I didn't really start going all ham writing different drafts. I started thinking about them. And you let thoughts mull over, you flesh those thoughts out, you bounce those thoughts off of a third perspective who might be able to offer their own views about what really stands out about those thoughts of yours. And that is going to be of probably the most used to you in the long run. As for academic rigor, uh, I know that this might be a piece of superficial advice, but from my knowledge, one of the reasons that I didn't end up applying to the UK was because there was a certain level of rigidity in the curriculum, whereas in the US it's much more flexible. My first semester, I had placed out of a bunch of introductory classes, and as a consequence of that, I thought it would be a good opportunity to take some advanced classes in my first semester at Penn. And I ended up doing that. While that was educational, that was also probably the toughest semester at Penn I'm ever going to face, because I was also adjusting to college and I was taking a bunch of classes, mostly with upperclassmen, in topics that may have been slightly over my head. And it took a lot of disproportionate effort to perform well in them academically. My second semester, I was able to reconcile with myself that, okay, my first semester was academically rigorous. I want to find time to do other things. I'm going to make my second semester easier. And I ended up doing that, and I ended up exploring some more advanced academics, but also giving myself some leeway to explore different options. In the US, I'd say simply it's as difficult as you can make it for yourself. You can choose the classes that you want, you can choose the electives that you want, and it's all in your hands about how difficult you want to make it.
And so just coming back, adding to what he said, self. I remember calling my friends at 2 a.m. and asking them, what do you think of me? And I lost a lot of friends that way, but that is how much it takes.
There's just one thing I like to add is the most important thing I found in essays was connecting everything that you wrote to the past experiences that you've had and what you do in your daily life. So that's why those three camps which I went to, those really helped me figure out why I wanted to go to this college or why I wanted to pursue. And a lot of that was because of Nenika, who was my lead consultant, who constantly asked me why do you want to do this? Because everything that I just done up till then was like, oh, I really like this. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this activity, this inter-house, this from school. And then she was like, but why are you doing it? Why? And ultimately you have to connect everything. And I think that was what helped my essays the most.
When you talk about connecting, you also have to connect back to the university to which you are applying, right? So studying economics, say at Notre Dame, is going to be different than studying at Michigan versus Penn. And so understanding the unique characteristics of that particular university and their resources and bringing that into the story.
Yeah, I just wanted to add. So for the essays, so the entire application process is more of a philosophical journey. You realize a lot about yourself, and I think everyone knows that they're very different after they wrote their application. So although the US application is hard, I think it's really fun and it makes you a much better person or an individual. So with the essays, I wrote 15 essays for Harvard, not as many as Ishan, but in each essay I talked about something different. So for the first one, I spoke about how I was the head girl. I thought that was the most important thing for me. And by the end of it, I spoke about public speaking and how I gave a TEDx talk. And I gave the TEDx talk because I wanted to put it on my application, but I realized that I love public speaking. So it really helps you build yourself and your personality. So because of that, so yeah, you can talk about that.
Yeah, with regards to the essay, I would say definitely be different from everyone else. Admission officers read so many essays, which are all probably really similar. You want that wow factor, like when they read it, they're like, yeah, this guy is smart and he's different. I will, like, I want someone like that in my college. They want people that are unique and like really passionate. Um, like for my essay, I actually wrote about like my love relationship with a green swimming pool, and I added computer science, physics, and math. So don't just be different, but be different and also make sure that you're coming across as smart. They really look for that. So add some physics jargon, computer science jargon. Don't make it look forced. It has to be like fluid, and then they'll get it. Yeah.
To that, I would add, don't fabricate anything because you think that they want to hear that. And if you're going to use jargon, use it wisely. Our panelists are going to be here afterwards. I can take one last question right now, and then we can talk to them sort of individually. Go ahead.
So there are a lot of websites that you can go to, and on every university, at least even on Carnegie Mellon's page, there are a lot of external scholarship websites that you can go to, and you can see if you fit the criteria. So one scholarship was only for women, and they had to write. I had to write an essay about why I feel. Why I'm interested in the field that I'm doing, because I'm doing cognitive neuroscience, and it's a very like a STEM subject, and not a lot of women are there, and why I feel empowered by doing that and because of my choices. So there are very specific essays, and you can find these external scholarships on any. If you go on international student, some just type on Google, and you'll be able to find a lot of different options. But the deadlines are way before, or they're different from the application deadlines, so you should like think about that.
And the thing to keep in mind is, again, Sanjana is a US citizen, and so keeping in mind what the requirements are for each scholarship is really important. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming today. It was a great session. We had some great panelists. Thank you, guys. And also, I just want to point out, Kim and I wrote a book that came out 3 years ago, and we're in the process of updating it. It's the the Indian Students Comprehensive Guide to US Applications. And so a lot of the stuff that we talked about is outlined in further detail here, and hopefully the next version will be out in the next 6 months or so. Thank you all for coming, and have a great weekend. Yeah, we have a few copies over there for anyone who can rush to get them. Yes. Can we break up and answer that, because I know we have to give up the space. So thank you all. We have lots of team members around, so most of them can answer any questions that you have.